Been long enough that I feel comfortable talking about these two memes, the thin blue line and the thin bread line. The idea here with the thin blue line is that the American police force is a thin blue line of protection against the criminal underworld protecting the American civilians. And then the thin bread crust line is the concept that it is more dangerous to be a pizza delivery driver than it is to be a police officer. Thus, if we glorify the thin blue line, we should glorify the thin bread crust line. What's really cool about this kind of stuff is we can actually look this up using the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. They publish this stuff. We can actually find out if it's more dangerous to be a police officer or to be a pizza delivery driver. So looking at the most recent census data from 2019, top to bottom, the most dangerous jobs that it is. Number 1, fishing and hunting workers. 145 people out of 100,000 die. That is the number 1 most dangerous thing. Where do things like pizza drivers go? That would be number 7, driver, sales workers, and truck drivers at 26.8 people per 100,000 dying. Now, is this specifically pizza drivers? It's not really broken up, so it can't really be understood if that's the case. Where do police officers go? They're at number 22, at 11.1 out of 100,000 people dying. But what's kind of crazy is if you look at the other things, the other 21 things, it is more dangerous to be a refuse and recyclable material collector, i.e. a trash man, right, than it is to be a police officer. In fact, it is more than 3 times as dangerous to be driving a trash truck than it is to be driving a police car. Now, I'm not sure if that's a literal exact thing, but the point is, it is more dangerous to be doing trash stuff than it is to be doing police stuff. What's the thing just before being a police officer? Landscaping. First line supervisors of landscaping, lawn service, and groundskeeper workers. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to imagine that someone mowing a lawn is in more danger than someone who is driving a police car. But the major point here is that the concept of the thin bread crust line is actually relatively sound. It is a lot more dangerous to do a lot of other jobs than to be a police officer, many of which we don't consider actually dangerous. And by we, I mean just sort of the public. I think it's very common to have your kid mow your lawn, right? But it's not common to be like, yeah, go out and shoot bad guys. Now, again, I don't think mowing a lawn is actually more dangerous necessarily when we're talking about supervisors of landscaping. There's a lot more things that come into it. But that concept that it's actually a lot safer to be a police officer is the important point of the thin bread crust line. Now, the thin blue line definitely took off a lot more than the thin bread crust line, right? Like in 2021, January 4th, Buchanan, a Republican representative, put through Congress the proposal to say the Thin Blue Line Act. The idea being that if a person attacked a police officer or a firefighter, it would be easier to put them on death row. 2 days later, you'd have a lot of Trump supporters attacking the Congress building itself.
Investigators say the man swinging that flagpole in the red jacket is a former Marine and a retired New York City police officer. He's seen rushing police and tackling an officer to the ground. He's facing assaulting police, unlawfully entering Capitol grounds with a dangerous weapon, and civil disorder charges. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
I'd be curious to know if this act would actually be put in place against a lot of those people who likely themselves said thin blue line, but then attacked a bunch of officers defending America. So this gets a lot darker when we go into COVID deaths from 2021. I don't know that the data is in regards to fishing and hunting or logging or being a lawn worker or being a delivery driver in 2021. That data isn't out yet, but there is data on police deaths in 2021. By going to this police officer memorial site that is about, honoring the heroes of deaths in regards to being a police officer, 59% of all the deaths are from COVID-19. A lot of the people who are saying thin blue line were also people who are saying freedom of not wearing a mask, freedom of not being vaccinated. They're the ones who are helping perpetuate a long COVID. And ironically, that's the thing that is killing police officers more. It has doubled the deaths of police officers in 2021. I can't imagine what it was in 2020. So the point of this is that the thin bread line would be better as like the thin fish line, or maybe the thin wood line, or even the thin trash line, or even the thin grass line. But it's not exactly making sense to be the thin bread crust line. And so a lot of the people who were supporting the thin blue line weren't wearing masks, they weren't getting vaxxed, and they doubled the deaths of police officers. Now, obviously, they themselves didn't specifically do this, but the people who are masking up and people who are getting vaccinated are preventing the spread of COVID-19. The people who aren't are helping the spread of COVID-19. And we can see the effect on police officers. Memes thrive in the lack of information, whether it's a thin bread crust line or it's a thin blue line. Do research, because at least in the case of the people who supported the thin blue line, they may have actively been killing the very people they were trying to protect. Anyway, check out the details below in the description. You can look at these data sets that I was looking at myself. It's pretty fascinating, really interesting to see. It's kind of sad as well, but I think it's really good to kind of have this story out there that you can make sure that you can check these things. We don't have to get stuck in the memery. We can take our time to do some research and discover, oh, hey, turns out stuff is a lot more complex, and, well, it's good to know. See ya.